All right, so welcome to the first episode of Behind the Gem with KuCoin. So I am going to be interviewing a bunch of founders from top projects listed on KuCoin, and the idea is to get sort of the behind the scenes look at how they sort of build projects, their progress, what they're doing, as well as really wanting to show more of their actual, put a face behind the actual project. So it's not only on Twitter Spaces where it's all audio content. So today we have JP, who is the co-founder and CEO of Mantra. So just want to welcome you to our very first Behind the Gem episode, and perhaps just give the audience just an introduction to yourself, your background, as well as Mantra.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be the first of the Behind the Gems. We're good friends from Hong Kong, so good to be hanging out a little bit as well. So just quick background on myself. John, JP, I think is what people primarily call me in crypto, or JPM. And from the US originally, I've been living in Hong Kong for the last 7 years. Very early crypto adopter, bought my first Bitcoin in 2013. Have been working in the space full time since 2017. Before that, I was doing some fintech, blockchain related research at a bank in Shanghai. So been in the space for a long time. I've worked across centralized exchange business, brokerage, and I've been building Mantra for the last 4 years. Actually, we're celebrating our 4th TGE anniversary in 2 weeks. So we're an older project for the space. We have a lot ahead. We're building, effectively a real world asset focused blockchain, to effectively support and easily allow people to tokenize assets on chain. So we're really excited to share more about what we're building, and I'm sure we're going to unpack a lot of stuff today on Behind the Gem.
Yeah. Awesome. So real world assets, RWA, obviously this is a huge on-trend sector within blockchain and crypto. Can you just walk us through sort of what that is overall? I mean, I think a lot of the audience might be new to that concept. So What does that actually mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So real world assets is this idea, and to be honest, the acronym of RWA is horrible. In traditional finance, RWA means risk-weighted assets. So I think as a space, we can probably do better with our naming of what what our sector is. Effectively just means asset tokenization and bringing different types of assets or products to live on chain that may be a physical and or digital representation in the current world, whether it's a financial world, whether that's real estate, physical items, collectibles, creating a representation of that on chain that confers the real world economic value, rights, and ownership into the on chain representation. So that sounds relatively straightforward, but in practice it's honestly incredibly challenging. The easy part of it is creating a token. So you can create a token that in theory represents something, but creating the actual pathway between the on and off chain value transfer, combining that with the legal and regulatory frameworks around the world, and then finding a way for these tokens, in many cases that are effectively securities, to be able to be traded, distributed and invested in, is really the secret sauce, and something that honestly is what we're working on, but it's definitely not solved yet.
Got it. So I want to just bring the sort of the technical elements to it as well. So from my understanding, you guys are building the layer 1 blockchain for this sector specifically, right?
Yep.
So how does it from a tech side of things, how does RWA specifically change how you sort of build this L1 blockchain from a tech side, right? As opposed to, let's say, an L1 for consumer or an L1 for other sectors.
Absolutely. So we're building a chain, as you mentioned, specifically for this asset tokenization use case, but that doesn't mean that a lot of the technical considerations we're making wouldn't be applicable to consumer use cases, gaming use cases, NFTs, or other different types of things. We're just heavily focused on generating use cases that are tokenization focused, but boiling down to kind of like the technical, standard that we're building on, we're creating a permissionless layer 1. So it has a permissionless layer that anyone can read and write to the blockchain on. So just like anyone can deploy smart contracts, anyone can trade, anyone can transact, anyone can invest, anyone can stake. But it also has a layer that's permissioned, and a lot of the more regulated assets, the more products that require regulatory oversight, the platforms that may be regulated in nature would sit on this permission layer. But these are connected via the same common wallet infrastructure. We have chosen to build on the Cosmos SDK. This is a great kind of technological stack for building layer 1 blockchains that takes out the work of creating your own consensus mechanism where a delegated proof of stake model, using the core basic Cosmos SDK modules, but then we've created additional modules that support asset tokenization in our specific use case. So those include an identity module, which is effectively like this decentralized ID, where people can issue a decentralized ID that attaches to their wallet. So basically giving them like real world credentials that they can use to then connect their on-chain identity to a real world identity. So you can see who you are, where you're from, how you want to interact with different products. This is not a requirement, it's just in addition. So if you want to do that, you can, and then you can access the different, the permission side of it. Then there's a kind of a token issuance, which we call the module token service. Effectively, it's an easy way to create, utility tokens, governance and kind of security tokens, RWA type tokens, and these have different functions that, RWA specifically are requiring. Use an example of like a tokenized building or a tokenized piece of real estate. Let's just say in an instance where you're in a permissionless system and your wallet gets hacked, they can steal your tokens or your coins, and there's no, recourse to be able to get them back. In the instance of, let's just say I own a tokenized house and someone hacks my wallet, that doesn't mean that they just now take my house, right? So you have to have the ability to burn those tokens and reissue them back to the rightful owner. Got it. So there's kind of these different frameworks that we've created, and then the third piece, or the third core piece. There's a lot of other things we built, but the third core piece is a permissioning layer that we call the guard layer. This is effectively a way for Web 2 as well as Web 3 developers to easily create kind of like customizable governance and compliance frameworks that allow you to kind of like connect that decentralized ID as well as these tokens to be able to create a product, a pool, or an asset that has specific requirements on who can interact with it. So you can create a rule set that says Americans like myself can't touch this particular product because it's off limits, but Hong Kongers can, for example, and that can be built into this permissioning system. So basically, it takes the compliance guesswork out of the Web 3 developer's head, and it takes the blockchain guesswork out of the Web 2 developer's head. So it makes it very easy to build on chain effectively. Got it.
So this concept of RWA, right? You talked a lot about real estate and housing and tokenizing that as an asset class. I just want to get your insight on to what other asset classes you think would be suitable for tokenization, and do you think it's just all these real world assets, or are there certain types of assets that are more suitable compared to others, and how do you see that moving forward for mass adoption in the next few years?
Great question. I mean, we tend to be, or I will publicly say all the time, we're agnostic in whatever assets we want to try to tokenize. Anything in theory can be tokenized. That doesn't mean everything should be tokenized. We're really focused on creating tokenization use cases that really do actually create value for either the end investor or the issuer or the secondary market, the market structure. And if those kind of considerations aren't met, then we wouldn't do it. Real estate is one that's a little bit of a low-hanging fruit for us, just because we have a lot of really strong relationships with real estate developers in Dubai, which is obviously one of the hottest real estate markets in the world. And we're able to create pretty interesting products around that give maybe additional yield or additional incentives. They give additional liquidity, additional access, or even just a new type of structure of a product that couldn't exist before if it wasn't in token form. But some of the other use cases for tokenization that we're looking at include all different types of financial products, access to tokenized funds, like tokenize. There's a lot of tokenized treasuries right now. Ondo is a big project that does tokenized treasuries. But tokenized funds, whether it's like money markets or private credit or private equity or even VC funds, that many retail or kind of average investors wouldn't be able to get exposure to very easily, or even if they do have the ability to get exposure to, they can't do it in a tokenized form. Myself, maybe yourself, we have a lot of our assets in crypto or on chain, and it's actually kind of a pain to get it back into the real world or the traditional finance world to then be able to invest in stuff. Like I'm an American, it's kind of a pain in the ass for me to invest in Tesla stock, because I'd have to sell crypto, bring it into bank account, bring it to a brokerage, like all these steps. So alleviating that kind of friction is something that we're focusing on as well. Content and IP is another interesting one. Fan tokens are something that's pretty cool. You can really embed a lot of experiences into tokenized assets, but then like tokenized assets that not only embed this utility but also economic value. And I think that was kind of missing in a lot of like the fan NFTs, which were just like trying to not be a security basically. So they created an experience, but they didn't create any economic value, and you kind of saw what happened.
Got it. Awesome. So I want to I think now's a good time to bring up regulation and compliance, because obviously that's something that every single exchange as well as project needs to consider, especially in today's climate. So specifically for RWA projects like Mantra, like how are you guys thinking about regulatory compliance and how are you guys approaching this issue right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's like probably the biggest consideration when you're talking about real world assets, because many of these are dealing with investing, issuing tokens. Many of these tokens could be considered as securities. Like, how do these trade? Who can interact with them? Like, every different legal framework has a different idea about how these things should look, feel, and trade. We have the opinion that regulatory enforcement happens at the application layer, not necessarily the protocol layer, other than when you issue tokens. Like, for example, in Mantra Chain's case, like it's an L1, it's just creating software, it's creating, the ability for people to use the software that then can build an application on top of it. What you need to be concerned about from a regulatory perspective is how do you manage the OHM token, which is the token for the chain. But then when you talk about like the applications that are built on top of it, that's when you interact with trading of these assets, issuance of these assets, KYC and AML with people who are interacting with these products, and you can potentially have interactions with the fiat banking world, so like on and off ramping of money. That's when the AML and the KYC concerns really come into play. So the application layer is really where where secondary market trading happens, is where licensing is required in many instances. And across the world, exchanges are getting licensed all over the place. People are leaning into this regulatory landscape, just because it does give investors confidence that they know if something happens that there's recourse and that they can potentially get their money back. Obviously, heavy-handed regulation is not a good thing. So finding the right jurisdictions would give the proper ability to have some degree of leniency, but at the same time leniency in like understanding the technology, but not leniency in like breaking rules or something like that. So that's quite important. We've chosen to really focus on Dubai for our kind of application layer, and we've been going through the licensing process there, which has been honestly not easy. It's been a multi-year process.
Yeah, so given that we're on this topic of compliance, right? Do you think that's like the main, I guess, obstacle for you guys at this point, or what do you think is the biggest challenge or the main challenge for the not only for Mantra but for the tokenization RWA industry overall?
Yeah, good question. It is definitely one of the big challenges. I think arguably the bigger challenge is actually creating liquidity for these assets. Okay. And part of that is because there's not like very clear like regulatory rules and frameworks for all of these things to trade, right? And because of that, it's still a little bit of like figuring out and testing, and like different types of assets need to have different rules, different jurisdictions have different rules. So like understanding all of that and like grinding out different use cases and frankly trying things, like literally just trying it and seeing if it works is kind of the hard part. Creating secondary market liquidity is still a challenge. I think people historically have had this idea like, if we tokenize it, liquidity will come. that's just bullshit. It's clearly not happened. We had STOs, which are like security token offerings that were like a big thing in 2018, 2019. Right. There was no secondary market liquidity, right? People weren't trading these things, and it's become, and even today, it's not like an actively traded asset. This, broadly speaking, RWA assets, right? So, how do we solve that is a big thing, and I think part of that is understanding today's market of people who are interacting with stuff on chain are crypto natives, and crypto natives, have certain interests in certain types of yield profiles and risk profiles and different types of assets. So like balancing what is today's market versus what is tomorrow's market, I think is going to be the probably multi-billion dollar question, because if you get that second part right, like it's a game. I mean, it's a game changer, right? Like if you think that. Like our tagline is unlocking the $16 trillion RWA economy. Like that's multiple times bigger than all of crypto today, right? But that market doesn't exist yet. Right. So when that does, that's a huge unlock, potentially more liquidity into the crypto space or digital asset space, which I think in general will be, obviously a net very positive thing for the space.
Yeah. So you also mentioned, I think. Your connections in Dubai and these partnerships. Can you just? I think I saw some of your posts recently on X, right? So can you mention some of these key partnerships and how you guys are thinking about doing more partnerships in the near future?
Sure. Yeah. So one of the ones that we announced recently was a tokenized real estate offering in conjunction with a real estate developer called MAG Group. Okay. So MAG is a multi-billion-dollar real estate conglomerate, family business. Been around for 60 plus years. They have massive real estate holdings in the UAE and in parts of Europe, and are creating a really, really interesting high-end luxury real estate development called Couture Reserve. We're tokenizing $500 million of this property development, and the structure of this deal is effectively tokenizing the financing of this off-plan development. As an investor into the offering, you can both participate in the yield paid by the borrower. In this case, the borrower is the MAG Group, where they're paying 8% per annum in stablecoin in USDC. Okay. But then we'll also additionally incentivize it in OHM tokens. The OHM tokens, will probably do another 4 to 5%. The OHM tokens themselves could potentially go up or down in value, which means it could potentially be 10%, it could be 20%, it could also be 1%. Obviously, we hope it goes better to the upside than the downside, but that gives you the speculative element to potentially make a very, very nice return. But the interesting thing about this product is it's asset backed by the literal land of the development itself, which is worth the entire amount of this bond. It's guaranteed by the issuer, which is this multi-billion-dollar real estate developer. It's over-collateralized by a key real estate asset, which is like a $75 million mega mansion from the Ritz-Carlton Couture Reserve. So it's like a really, really cool property. Yeah. So the first tranche, I think, will be like $20-30 million bucks. Okay. Like your best bet is actually they don't pay you, and then you get to keep the house. So you have this really cool financing structure, and then at the end of it, so this is most likely going to be a 2 to 3 year development plan. You're going to get 8%, and of course your additional own bonus through those 3 years. Then you have the ability to not only participate in the financing, but actually participate in the equity and literally convert that into home ownership if you want.
Got it. So, I think before we wrap this up, I think one thing I have to mention, or we should talk about at least, is the OHM token, right? Sure. So I think, like you said at the start of this podcast, we've known each other, I think even before you launched in 2019, right? Yep. So, and obviously we've been through, multiple cycles. Can you just walk us through just sort of your mindset, just for the builders out there who are watching this, right? So, what was going through your minds, and how did you guys sort of pivot, or what changed during, for example, the bear market, and then how did you guys manage to keep focus and pick up to this year?
It's a great question. I mean, to be honest, I think Mantra's history up until today has just been a little bit of the history of my life, right? In the sense of
because it's so intertwined with
Mantra is my life. My life is Mantra. Exactly, this is everything for me. So I think anyone in the company, anyone who knows me well knows that this is this is everything. So that's part of it, and a lot of it is also just there's been so many instances of like trying different things, it not working out, learning from that opportunity, trying it again, still not working out, you know, having some success, then things don't work, dealing with that, fixing it, trying again. It's just been a constant like iterative process. So like, you know, when people from a third party or outsider perspective ask if we've like pivoted to RWAs, I would say honestly for me it's never been a pivot, it's just been an evolution of like looking at the space, seeing what worked, learning from it, trying something new, and then really trying to like align that with our broader vision of what we're building on Mantra. So we've been doing, you know, RWAs or asset tokenization for a long time. Like before even we launched Mantra, which initially was called Mantra DAO. You know, myself and Will, one of our other co-founders, we did a tokenization deal in the U.S. back in 2019. So we tokenized a professional basketball player's contract with a U.S. broker dealer called Tractorian Capital, like in the very, very early days before this was even really a thing, right? So like there's been a lot of instances of trying that out, then we tried some DeFi stuff, then we're like bridging these things together. So a lot of it's just been pure like grit, determination, and persistence, and you know, maybe in my case a little bit of delusion that you know we could figure it out, and you know I think we were onto something, and you know fortunately the results have kind of like spoken for themselves this year, and you know the market's really responded well to our narrative and to what we're building, and we've been able to you know bring in you know really strong institutional investors who backed us, added credibility to our story, to our narrative. But it's been a culmination of a lot of hard work, a lot of relationship building, and frankly a lot of conviction of that this was the way.
So I guess that's kind of the same advice whether it's like even outside of crypto and Web 2, right? It's just constant, you know, iteration, constant just sort of finding your way and just never giving up, even you know staying focused even in the bear market, right?
100%.
So I guess my final question would be about you know whether you can share any alpha or anything else for the I guess second half of 2024, right? Anything you guys are working on that you can share right now to the KuCoin audience?
Absolutely. So, you know, obviously we're in the testnet phase for the layer 1 right now, which is called the Hong by testnet. You can participate today. You can, you know, earn part of the incentivized air or gen drop that we're doing. So we're doing a Genesis drop of 50 million Ohm tokens for participants who are, you know, earning rewards and doing quests on and off chain. So, you know, look at that as a way to potentially participate like today. We will be launching mainnet later this year. Publicly, what we're saying is after the summer, before the U.S. election. So U.S. election is November 5th, so before November 5th. So you can kind of understand where that window is going to be for mainnet launch. Super excited about that. In terms of RWA partnerships, you know, we announced this $500 million deal with MAG. I can say that's really just like the tip of the iceberg. We have, you know, huge deals coming. A lot of different use cases, which are really exciting. We've talked about some of them today as well. So that's going to be really cool. And, you know, we're looking to like, I really feel that we're just getting started. So even though Mantra's, you know, celebrating our 4th birthday in 2 weeks, you know, I'm like as excited as ever about the next 10 years.
Amazing. And obviously like the space you're in, like RWA, I think you mentioned like 16 trillion, right? Is like, so the sky's the limit, you know, there's so many different things within RWA that you guys can explore and do all these cool partnerships. So I'd like to thank you again for coming on. This is our very first Behind the Gem. So really happy to have JP, who's a good friend, as well as I think building one of the coolest and most promising projects, you know, out there. And yeah, so hope to have you on in the near future and hear all about the updates.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.